Hello, everybody, and welcome back once again to the Biff Rugby League podcast. It's episode 5. You can see Robin this week, not just hear him. So we're back into the full swing of things. Before we get into all the Super League chat and everything else, how's everyone's week been?
I've had a great week. I've had a fantastic week, and I'm super excited for the start of the new season. Like since we started the Biff, we've been talking about this, and it feels like we can really get stuck into it. I'm excited to see what's going to happen now.
What about yourself, Toby?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. I can't believe that we're about to enter limited rugby league territory. And you know, it's just great that the season's back, and let's just see what happens.
Yeah, we've got 6 Super League fixtures, 7 Championship fixtures, and 6 Challenge Cup fixtures this weekend. So there's plenty of rugby to talk about. But obviously, we'll start and we'll go straight into our usual Kickstarter of the episode. Robin, story of the round time, my friend.
Yeah. So I feel like my stories so far, they've all been quite positive stories, and this one, I suppose you could say it was a negative story, but I feel like it's really an important issue in our sport. And I noticed a headline this week on Love Rugby League about Tyrone Mccarthy. He played over 250 games. He's won Challenge Cups with Warrington, and he's represented Ireland. And at the end of last season, he retired following a head collision, which it fractured his eye socket and left him with long-term concussion. And he's unfortunately still suffering from double vision months after this injury, months after his retirement, and is now seeking specialist treatment. And it reminded me of the documentary. I'm not sure if either of you two have seen it, about Stevie Ward, about living with concussion.
No, I didn't manage to get it.
Yeah, it's a really good one. It's on Sky if anybody wants to watch it. And it's all about his head injury. It's all about he's got persistent post-concussion syndrome. And it's like a year after his final match, and even a year later, he's still got these symptoms after a consecutive bangs to the head, basically. And head injuries, it's a really important topic, and I think we've all become increasingly aware of it over recent years in all contact sports. But some of the main side effects with concussion: dizziness, migraines, nausea, light and noise sensitivity, depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. It's expected to go away after a few weeks, but like in Stevie's case, like we've seen with Tyrone Mccarthy, and like we've heard with countless other athletes, it can last for much longer than that, and there's no guarantee that it'll ever go away. In the NFL, the American football, and that's where a lot of this research on head injuries kind of started, maybe like half a decade ago, and one of the largest studies in the NFL found that 110 out of 111 deceased players had CTE, which is a degenerative brain disorder linked with repetitive brain trauma. And again, that's linked to suicidal behavior, dementia, declines in memory, mood, executive function. So obviously, it's a really, really big problem in contact sports. And then you start to question, like, what's the way out of it? And I mean, this year, for example, the RFL and Super League, there's a scheme, they've called it TACKLE, which stands for Tackle and Contact Kinematics Load and Exposure, and that looks at minimising the amount of load on players. They call it load, but they basically just mean the number of like head knocks.
Yeah.
And they've got some really interesting technology actually. This year, every team is going to be given these mouth guards that contain accelerometers and gyroscopes to assess the collision load a player has been exposed to during a match. So that's for all the Super League clubs this year. They've also strengthened the disciplinary procedures to reduce any contact to the head. And so any deliberate act of foul play which results in contact to the head now is determined a grade D offence. So that's a 3 to 5 match suspension. So that'll hopefully prevent, put people off doing it, or make them super aware not to make contact with the head. And outside of the disciplinary process, they have increased the period of recovery to 11 days, which is obviously much better than before, but at the same time, you're looking at these stories like Stevie Wonder. A year later, he's still suffering from it. So 11 days, is it longer? And in the documentary, Stevie Wonder talks about it, and his sort of solution is that we just need to minimise contact. And he spoke about the balance between keeping the best parts of rugby league and without having the long-term suffering of players. And it's a really deep topic, and we won't have time to get into it. We're just scratching the surface on this today. And we're talking about the elite level where we've got the funds to give players gyroscope mouth guards and have support staff, and there's a whole plethora of issues for everybody who doesn't have those supports. But for me, having looked at it this week, when I was I got excited by the technology. For me, I hope that's the answer. There's techniques such as neurofeedback where they put electrodes on your head to monitor brain activity, and that can be used to assess brain fitness. And I was thinking up these ideas of players being regularly tested to assess the fitness of the brain, and if they see that the player's at risk, they might rest them the same way that physio might see a player at risk of tearing a ligament. And alongside the gyroscopes in the mouth guards, and just general awareness for trained staff to spot head injuries on the field of play, hopefully we can mitigate it. But yeah, it's a deep issue. This is just a broad introduction, but it's really important we talk about it, especially with the mental health aspect. And it's going to be one of these challenges for our sport and many others to hopefully try and overcome in the future.
Yeah, 100%. Stevie Ward is a player that was part of that really successful Leeds team in 2015 as a young player, and he had a few seasons after that, but he couldn't get back to the potential that he was because of the head injuries. He wasn't necessarily getting high shots or suffering head injuries in those games, but the impacts of previous head injuries were still affecting him months later, and they still are now. And it's scary, not just for us to read it and go, bloody hell, that, I imagine if we were in that. You can't put yourself in his shoes, but you also have to put yourself in the shoes of his partner and these players' wives and these players' families and these players' close friends, if they get these mood swings and they get these suicidal thoughts, they come at a time where it's never the right time, obviously, but they come at a time where they can't deal with it. Like if they're one-to-one or they're in public and stuff like that, like these things can happen just like that, and it's really scary. And I'm glad to see that we're doing a lot more to try and understand it, but it's got to a point now where we should have, I know the technology hasn't been there, but we just wish we could have understood it 40, 50 years ago. You're saying like the NFL in the last half a decade have been doing stuff, and all the technology that's around we're slowly understanding it. What I've seen is when in rugby union they lowered the tackle height, and it was like shoulder or below. If it was anything above the shoulder, it was something above the chest. I think it was above the chest. Anything above the chest was a high tackle, and they trialled it. And I think they tried a lot of these things in Welsh rugby to see how it goes in the lower divisions. There was more head injuries and more concussion injuries from players being tackled below the chest than there was at the normal tackle height as what we have now. That's
really interesting.
That really interested me, and they scrapped the trial because they were getting more concussion injuries. I don't think there's much we can do in terms of the game's rules now to change it, can we?
No, I think that there's people who have access to the data that there's probably things that you wouldn't immediately think of, like the second-hand effects of that rule that make sense when you say it out loud, were actually the opposite. So I'm sure there are things that we can do, and we will discover them. And I think our responsibility as fans is to be willing to see these changes come into place. We all love the big hits, but I think the safety of players, we absolutely have to prioritise that. And I think we need to be willing to see our game change in order to help mitigate these risks in the future.
Yeah, Toby, as a forward, there's probably someone who would probably understand it a bit more, having played a bit. The hits are bigger, aren't they, for you guys? And you feel them probably a bit more after a game. People want to take you down, so they try and hit you a bit higher, even though you shouldn't. Like, do you think that as a forward it's slightly different to say as a winger, or do you think that I don't really know what I'm trying to ask. Do you think the type of player you are would, as a defender, makes a change to how you're going to tackle someone and potentially alter someone's life?
I think it depends on your style of defence, more than anything. The reason that trial you talk about was unsuccessful is because if you tackle around the legs, you get knees in your head. And if you tackle, round, you aim sort of your torso and chest area, you try to wrap the ball up, you end up with your shoulder going to someone else's head. It's such a difficult thing, and in terms of that, I would never, whenever I played, I was actually, and the reason I sort of never tried too hard is because I couldn't bring myself to tackle low. But then you look at that, like, I've been bounced off some people when I've tried to tackle high. So it's, or not high, but...
Yeah, I get you.
But yeah, appropriate torso level. So it's really difficult. And I think that I honestly don't have a solution for it. You look down the route where you say any high contact's a yellow card, and then all of a sudden seatbelt tackles become yellow cards, and you're grimacing at the fact that you haven't actually even touched the neck, you've just gone over the shoulder.
Yeah.
I honestly don't have a clue what the answer is. And I just hope that obviously the scientists are sort of making the right recommendations, and those recommendations that then get listened to. Because I don't think it's something where, it's down to a board, a league's board, or a committee to decide how to, a non-scientific committee to decide how to mitigate that risk.
Yeah, exactly. But like you said, Robin, this is a much deeper topic of conversation, and I'm glad you brought it up, because it is something that it gets your brain thinking, and it gets people interested in trying to fix the problems that we have. It's probably something we'll discuss throughout the year when head injuries come up and players are missing for 4 weeks when they didn't look like they'd been injured the week before, and like players fail a head injury assessment even though they've not necessarily taken a head knock in a game. And I'm sure, like I said, I'm sure it will come up and we'll discuss it a lot more, and it might be something we discuss during an off-season sort of chat that we publish late in at the end of the year, but maybe after the World Cup and something. See how this year's gone with the new trial and everything once we get the results back from the trial. But we're going to move on to something a little bit more upbeat, a little bit more positive. It's Player of the Round time. Toby, would you like to introduce the Player of the Round for this week?
I would love to introduce the Player of the Round. It has slipped my mind.
It slipped your mind?
Which player we had chosen. I do remember. It's just come to me. So we looked at this from the perspective of what was the biggest upset this weekend. And to us, the biggest upset this weekend was Sheffield Eagles beating Bradford Bulls in the Championship. 6-6 at half time, and Sheffield ran away with that in the second half, and has left. There's many interviews from John Keir saying a couple of interviews from John Keir saying he's sort of disappointed with the side, and they've got a long way to come. And this is a Bradford side we thought were going to push for the playoffs this year. And now you start to ask questions of that prediction. The man of the match for the Sheffield Eagles Supporters Club, and hence our Player of the Round, for being the best player in that upset, was, I believe his name's Liam Johnson.
It is, yeah. Liam Johnson of the Sheffield Eagles is the Biff Player of the Round for this week. Like you said, the performance from Sheffield at the weekend, nobody thought they'd go to Odsal and beat Bradford, did they?
Absolutely.
No, they played really well, and from the highlights, they were well-worked tries, good team efforts. I think Thackeray had a good game in attack, but I think Toby said during when we caught up earlier in the week that you can't look past the forward having such an instrumental role in a team that overturns better side. He set up the try at the end. He scored one himself. So definitely a worthy winner of the player of the round.
Yeah, some notable mentions as well this week. There was Ryan Shaw picking up a try, 2 conversions and a penalty, and then Adam Lawton off the bench scoring a hat-trick as well this weekend, and Corey Aston getting a try, 2 assists on debut and a 28-0 win for Fax as well. Those 3 players were players that we discussed, but we just felt that Liam Johnson's impact in a Sheffield team that stunned Bradford, in our opinion, but fully well deserved for our Biff player of the round. And because he is our Biff player of the round, he is guaranteed a spot in the Biff team of the month at the end of the month. Okay, well deserved. Like we would, the player of the round from our first ever player round didn't get himself in, but I have decided at this very moment on this spot that every player that wins player of the round is guaranteed a spot in the team of the month at the end. So there's one of our 17 players for the end of the month. I'll move to you again though, Toby, and Robin's going to have a reaction that is so honest, it's unreal. It's time for the Biff Rugby League Hall of Fame inductee number 5. This is going to be a massive Hall of Fame come the end of the year.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm doing a bit of admin work for the Hall of Fame with this, but there's context behind it. This weekend, the NRL's back, and it's the All-Star Game, which is their sort of big pre-season event to get you excited for the NRL. It's the Maori All-Stars versus the Indigenous All-Stars, but it used to be the Indigenous All-Stars versus the World All-Stars. Regardless of what type of All-Stars are playing each other, even though it's not always a full team of All-Stars, there's only been one player to win Man of the Match in an All-Star game twice. He's also the player that I remember when scoring a winning drop goal in Golden Point of the first grand final I ever watched in the NRL, and many argue that immortal status is waiting for him. Again, I don't like the fact that I haven't quite picked most.
Is he dead again? Has he dropped out again?
I'm on the edge of my seat here.
Robin doesn't know. He'll come back. He will come back. I'm actually going to leave this in because Robin is on the edge of his seat. He's back.
Where did we get to?
You were just about to say his name and you cut out. And Robin is like on the edge of his seat. Come on, I'm leaving this in. Usually I'd cut, like for those listening and watching, we'd usually cut and then just start again because we like to keep it flowing. But because this is a full surprise, we're going to leave it in. Let's carry on. Where did you carry on?
Here we go. So Jonathan Thurston will be the fifth / I mean, at this point, I think it's about the 50th if you include the whole Northwest Crusader squad from my last. Every player who's ever scored a try in the corner,
and every corner flag that you've ever seen in the Super League, and every league ever is in there as well.
Yeah, but Jonathan Thurston will be the 5th inductee into the Biff Rugby League Hall of Fame for sort of being the best player in the world when I got into rugby league. And because in the context of the All-Star Game being this weekend, he's the only player to have been man of the match in it twice, which I think is a huge achievement.
Yeah, exactly. Robin, fully deserved, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't talk about a Rugby League Hall of Fame and not have Jonathan Thurston in there. But I'm just totally caught me off guard because of all the things in his career to give him Hall of Fame.
I know.
You give him the 2 man of the match performances in a pre-season game. But I feel like if anybody doesn't know who he is, we've just totally undersold Jonathan Thurston. He's an absolute legend.
Jonathan Thurston
changed the game.
Jonathan Thurston has played over 300 NRL games, scored 90 tries and kicked over 900 goals, scoring 2,222 points in the process.
Wow.
He's also played 38 times for Australia, scoring 382 points, 37 games for Queensland, scoring 220 points, and in 6 All-Star appearances, he's kicked 17 goals.
You could look at any stat and it would he would earn a spot. But I think as a player, like you say, he's one of the best. Certainly in the time that I've been watching the sport.
So he's
one of my absolute fave.
He's the only NRL man MVP twice, right? but he's also the first ever player to win the Dally M medal 4 times, and he's also the first ever 3-time winner of the Golden Boot. And for those that like the Golden Boot's quite self, he's the best player in the world 3 years on the bounce, the best player in the NRL for 4 years. But you've gone, you know what? He kicked a drop goal that time in the grand final, and he's won 2 NRL All-Star Maryland matches. Like he is going to be an immortal. He is. He just is, isn't he? You can't argue that. He's probably going to be one of the ones that. He's probably going to be. He's got to be the next one, hasn't he? You'd say.
I think if you're looking, if I'm looking in like the period of my lifetime, he's probably the best player that I've ever seen. I've seen him play live as well, which was like a bit of a bucket list moment. But yeah, definitely the best. I think Toby. I think Brad, you'll know better than me, but if I was to ask pupil Toby a question and he gave me the right answer, and then I said, show your markings, and that's what he gave me, show your workings out, I'd be like, wrong.
That's the thing, right? You get them questions where it goes, what's the answer? Please show your working. It doesn't matter if the working, however you get there, as long as you get the right answer and you show some form of working, you'll get the marks, right? That's what he's done. He's given you the right answer and he's gone, that'll do. And he's got full marks for it because you can't not say to him, Jonathan Thurston's not in the Hall of Fame. Of course he's in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the best players to ever do it. And you can't argue that at all, really.
I'm surprised that Jonathan Thurston got in the Hall of Fame after the 2013 Crusaders. But... I'm
also surprised he got in there after corner flags. But like we said, it's not going to be the most. I can't even think of the word. It's not going to be like the most normal Hall of Fame. It's going to be different. It's going to be fun, and we will go through it at the end of the year. I will go through and categorise people and whatever. So they are our inductees. Maybe one day we'll get one of them on. Who knows? We'll get a corner flag to mention how they feel and stuff like that. But we need to move on. We need to move on to the key aspect of the podcast today. I've already mentioned Super League's coming back. For those of you listening to the podcast, watching the podcast on Thursday evening, kickoff will be in about an hour and a half. We're recording this Wednesday night, so I probably won't be awake when the rugby's on Thursday night. I will be catching up on some very much needed sleep. But we're going to kick off. We're going to do our Super League predictions. We've sort of discussed the league a little bit in the terms of where we think the teams are going to finish, and we're going to go through it just like we did with the Championship, team by team, bottom to top. There might be a few surprises. You probably will agree with most of what we say, I would have thought. I don't think it's a very difficult league to predict this year. Are you two sort of in agreement with that?
I think it gets fuzzy between 3rd and maybe 6th, and then between 7th and 9th. But yeah,
yeah, Toby.
It's easier than the Championship in some respects.
Yeah, obviously only 12 teams as well. So the first question is though. Obviously, who do we think is getting relegated? And we spoke about this towards the end of last season live. We spoke about this quite a bit during the off season privately, and we've mentioned it. We mentioned it back in episode 1 and episode 2 when you went to see this team play. Wakefield are going to finish bottom of the league. They have one of the weakest squads in the league. They haven't really, in my eyes, improved their squad. They've lost Joe Westerman. They've lost Joe Arundel. They've lost Kyle Wood, Chris Green, Alex Walker, and they haven't re-signed Ryan Hampshire. But they have brought in Tom Lynham, Lee Gaskell, Liam Hood, Sadiq Adibay, and Corey Hall. They've lost 7. They've signed 5. Have they improved? With Toby, would you say they've improved as a team, or in fact probably just got worse or stagnated?
Yeah, I think at minimum they've stagnated. I don't think they've. I definitely don't think they've improved. It doesn't look promising for Wakefield. I'm not convinced by Willie Poaching being their coach. I think it's something where it worked for a couple of games towards the end of the season where teams around them are tired and things, and you can't really predict what's going on. You can't really say much about the results because a lot of teams already secured their fate for the season. I just don't think it looks promising for Wakefield at all. There's been no point during the off season where I've wanted to pay attention to what Wakefield have been doing.
No.
and I think that's the biggest teller that they're not going to stay up this season.
Yeah, the one thing that surprises me is that they haven't re-signed Alex Walker. As a team that's really only got Max Jowett at fullback, they're going to be short at fullback if he gets injured. And Alex Walker is still young enough to develop and turn into a good quality fullback. We know that fullbacks nowadays, there's not many good young fullbacks. They're all developed and they've all got plenty of years and plenty of games under their belt. The lad's on trial at a championship club, and they haven't re-signed Ryan Hampshire either. We're not the biggest fan of some of these players we're mentioning, but they're key to Wakefield, aren't they?
Yeah, I think to be a Super League side, you need more than just one or two players, and really the only player in that Wakefield side that you would think about poaching is probably David Fafita, and even he isn't a player that's he's not one of the best props in the league. Well, he's one of the best props in the league, but I don't think you'd actually want him at your team because I don't think he's not that great. Do you know what I mean? So. You can't carry this team on his back. And like you said, they've not retained well, and that's probably a reflection on poaching as well. Players know when they're not going to try and sign for the team that they think is going to go down. So they've voted with their feet there a bit as well.
Yeah, they really need Mason Lino and David Fafita to sort of run this team, don't they? They're going to have to rely on Reece Lyon and Tom Linen on one edge, Bill Tupper and Tom Johnson. Like their centre, their three quarters, their wings and their centres, they're pretty solid. Like you take that. I think most Super League teams would take Tom Johnston, Tom Linen, Reece Lyon, and another centre. Like I know they've got Bill Tupper in there, but most teams would take a couple of them in their squad. They wouldn't be starting. That's not a fantastic starting back four or whatever, but they're players that you'd rather have as a second or third choice. A lot of their players are, aren't they?
Yeah, I think a theme that sort of, especially the teams that I've sort of looked into, a theme that I could bring up with a couple of teams throughout this preview is the fact that you look at the players who have moved around the championship this season. Brandon Pickersgill, you look at Joey Leilua coming into the championship, Caleb Aikens going into the championship. It's very hard to say that team has had a good pre-season where they've let players like that go to the championship, and that championship clubs are more attractive than a Super League club to those players, and that just makes me sort of really worry about the future of that club as a Super League club.
Yeah, and we were very adamant. Like we was like, who's going to finish last, and all three of us at the same time went Wakefield. And we said the same thing about the team we think is going to finish in 11th as well. Like Toulouse, they're a strong team, really good team, but they've only got 26 registered players. They're gonna struggle this year, aren't they, Robin? Especially with the vaccination status on a lot of their players that we're not sure about yet, and players that like Jonathan Ford no longer with the team, having been released as well.
Yeah, that's the biggie for me. Jonathan Ford's not going to be there. He's been a part of that team for such a long time, and he was part of the sort of. It gave him the momentum to get promoted. So then to finally get here, and obviously it's his personal choice about the vaccinations, but it's a shame. It really is. And like you said, they've not got the deepest squad. They're already going to be under the pump. To then also be running so thin, it's difficult. I mean, they have got stars in there. They have, like Mark Kurilla's a great player, Dom Peru is a great player, Pelissier, Hansen. They've got Super League experience, so you'd like to think that they can beat Wakefield. That's why I think they are ahead of Wakefield. But they're definitely an at-risk team. They definitely need to bolster their squad ASAP.
Yeah, they've got Matty Russell in there, Gadwin Springer, James Cunningham, Joseph Paulo, Mitch Garbett, Tony Gigo. There's players they have, like you said, they're star players, and they're players that they're household names now that any rugby league fan that watches Northern Hemisphere Rugby League will recognise. But they've got players in there like Latrell, and if I'm saying it wrong, I apologise, Schweinkel and Matthew Jussom. These are young players that haven't played at the highest level anywhere. and might struggle when it comes to playing even the teams that we've got finishing 7th to 10th. Like, I won't say those teams' names, but the teams we've got finishing 7th to 10th are going to be looking for playoff places if towards the end of towards the middle of the season. Yes, they might slip off towards the end, but they're going to be fighting. I don't think Toulouse, along with Wakefield, are going to be able to fight a lot this year. They're going to get put to the sword quite a bit. Yes, they'll shock a few teams, but that'll be when teams rest players, won't it?
Yeah, but I mean, being realistic, we just want them to survive this year. So,
yeah.
Like, if they come 11th, I'll be happy because I want to see this team in Super League, and then they can build from there. But that's the main goal. So it's no disrespect putting them down in 11th and not making the playoffs. We're absolutely fine with it. I just want to see them survive. Yeah,
Toby, you're in that sort of category as well. We need to lose in Super League, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. There was talk for years about how the only solution to, especially a French TV deal, but also a European TV deal, was to be able to sell a French derby. And I think you've started to see now that there is an interest now in Super League from a more global media perspective. And I know that's sort of looking at it very much like, other than the fact they're just a fun team who have been doing some great things and contribute greatly to the French national team as well. But it is just great for the game to have that Toulouse and Catalans pair in Super League. Yeah,
definitely. And like you said, Robin, no disrespect having them down in 11th. I think if they'd have kept Jonathan Ford, we could have argued they might be 10th, but that's a huge loss. Jai Hitchcock's has gone to Lee, Bastien Adair's gone to Le Mans, Remy Casty's retired. Yeah, they've brought in the likes of Hankinson, Russell, Springer, Cunningham, and Belmas from Lesignan. But not like there's players that signed for Lesignan this year that we were like, that surely they'd rather play in Toulouse, right? We were looking at the name has gone from my head. Remind me, James Maloney. We were looking at James Maloney going, why is he going to Lesignan? Like, if Catalan don't want him, he can still play in France if he wants to and play for Toulouse. And I'm sure Toulouse wouldn't mind if he wanted the odd week off, like, because they know that even if they have him for half the season, they'll stay up because he's that much of a quality player. But maybe there's just not the money there. We will move on though. 10th. Toby, this is one of the teams that sort of you had to focus on throughout the off-season, and the team that you're a little bit excited about, but due to one particular player, Salford in 10th.
Yes, Salford in 10th. They have had a complete change of spine, at least in the halves and fullback position, with Brodie Croft, Mark Sneed, and Ryan Brealey coming in to take the 1, 6, and 7 jerseys. And that's where my real excitement comes from, is Brodie Croft. He's a player who at Melbourne was looking very, very promising. Took a big money deal to go to Brisbane. Didn't work out for him in a team that's been falling apart around him. He's very quick. He has got a mind for rugby league. He does think about the space around him. He's just struggled to sort of find it. And I feel like that's almost the position that Jackson Hastings was in when he joined Salford. Different coach now, but I think there's the potential for it to really be a great place for Brodie Croft to grow and thrive in this Salford team. Aside from that, I think their forwards do look a little bit thin. You've got Sita Akawala and Greg Burke being their sort of, and Elijah Taylor as their sort of starting middles. James Greenwood and Shane Wright will be their second rowers. King Vuniyayawa comes across from Leeds, and at the start, for their first week at least, Harvey Levett and Jack Almondroyd and Jack Wells will all be missing from that lineup, and I think it does make them undersized. So it's something where I'm not sure that there's going to be the platform for them to play off. Callum Watkins will also be missing at the start for the first game of the season, and he's going to be a key part of their back line, which retains top try scorer Ken Seo, brings in Joe Burgess and Tim Lafai, but it's all sort of a question of will it be good enough, and will it be able to let Brodie Croft produce Melbourne magic rather than Brisbane Madness.
Yeah.
There you go. Got the alliteration there.
The alliteration is in there. Players that they've lost then, they've lost 4 halfbacks. Like, they've lost Kevin Brown, he retired. They lost Hingano, who's gone to Lee. Lolahua's gone to Huddersfield, and Deck Patton's gone to Bradford. Like, 4 halfbacks to go in one off season. Robin, that's risky business, isn't it? We discussed this about one of the championship teams, but that's risky.
Yeah, it is. But having said that, I mean, I look at their fullback Ryan Brearley, Brody Croft, and then Mark Sneyd. I think that's an upgrade. So I think when you look at those 3 players, Sneyd's obviously the organizer, the kicker. Brearley's great off the cuff, so he's going to be a great third option. And Croft at first receiver, you'd like to think that he can do well. So I don't think that's the concern. I like Ken Seo. I hope he has another good season. And Joe Burgess as well. We've seen him. I mean, it's a while ago now, but hopefully he can find that form when he's got those 2 halfbacks that can deliver in ball in space. It's the concern is up front for me.
Yeah, players that haven't got a starting 13 jersey in the backs: Morgan Escaré, Dan Sargentson, Matty Costello, Reece Williams, Chris Atkin. Like, and that's a really solid like backup as well. Like, you're happy with that back 5 as a lower level Super League side. But like you said, up front is their problem. Jack Ormonroyd, Jack Wells, Josh Johnson, King Vuniyayawa, Sam Luckley, Danny Addy. They're going to have to do huge shifts off the bench and potentially start when Greg Burke, Shane Wright, James Greenwood might not be fit throughout the season. And that's why they're so low down our table, because they don't have the forward pack to compete like the team we have in 9th, like Ian Watson's side in Huddersfield Giants. They have lost 8 players. They've lost 8, but their squad is huge. They have a 36-man squad. Last year they had 40 players in their team. That's ridiculous. You can't argue that they don't have any depth. They've brought in Chris Hill, they've brought in Nathan Mason, and they've brought in Lolahia and Fage. Will Price has been given the number 1 jersey. Ian Watson and Luke Robinson have a beautiful team, in my opinion, but we just don't think they're going to get them playing right, do we? Really? They have to do something special to beat the teams above them every week and be consistent. They have to do something special. And Toby, the fact that Jack Cogger hasn't been given a starting shirt, the fact that neither of the senior boys have been given a starting shirt, Adam O'Brien hasn't been given a starting shirt, Joe Greenwood, Matty English, Ika Hififo, like, these players are players that would have started for Huddersfield last year.
Yeah, some of the best games I've seen Huddersfield play in recent times was with one of the senior brothers on the wing, or some of these players who seem to be in the low 20s in terms of their starting number. I know that doesn't mean much, but it seems to be that they're putting players like Ashton Golden. They're saying that he's more valuable to us as a winger than the senior brothers, and that it's something that feels quite strange to me to see, because it kind of feels like they're pushing against their young talent coming through, and they're not committing to their young talent. And I think that's where Leeds have had great success recently. It's where Wigan have had great success recently, is they've gone to these young players. You've had a good half season for us off, in those lower squad numbers now, and you've proven that you can play in that sort of top 17. And I think there's a hesitancy to do that at Huddersfield. I think it's quite an ageing team, really, if they're going to play anything close to 1 to 17. And yeah, it's just looking like they're confused about what they want to do this season.
Yeah, we know that we probably know they're not going to play 1 to 17, because Leroy Cudjoe wants to play with number 21 on his back. Adam O'Brien's going to want to play with 19 on his back, and those players we know are probably going to be in that 17-man squad. Will Price been given the number 1 jersey. I'm really excited about that. I'm happy that Jacob Wardle's got number 3, but like you said, aging squad. Do you think that the excitement of Will Price will distract the fans from the age of this team? It's last chance for Cudjoe and McGilvray and Chris Hill and Michael Lawrence and Chris McQueen and Luke Yates. It's their time. They've got to do it this year, but we can't. They're not going to do it, are they?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, if you look at like Huddersfield over the last couple of seasons, they've had some rough years, and when Chris Dorman was there, I think he recognised that, and so he did give lots of game time to a lot of the youngsters, and that's why we got the senior brothers. That's why we've got Will Price. So, like you're saying, it seems strange that they're undoing their hard work by then replacing them with like old players. It's just another short-term solution. Personally, I don't see that the players they've brought in, like you said, Chris Hill, I don't see that he's got it in him to lift this side. McGilvray and Kudjoe, I mean, they've been there for years and they haven't hit that form that they did back in sort of 2015. So I think you're right. I think they should be looking towards the future. So it does concern me that this is the squad that they've chosen to go with.
Yeah, the only positive for them is the fact that they have got such a big team. So they're not going to worry when it comes to injuries. They're not going to have to potentially play players that have never played Super League before. I think everyone that's got a squad number other than 4 academy products has played Super League rugby. That's huge. To have 36 players in your squad that have played that level of rugby means that they can be trusted.
Yeah.
It's a safe team, and we hope for the Huddersfield Giants fans' sake that they play better than what we think they will. But
it's a safe team, like you said, that they're gonna get through the season. They're not gonna go down. It's a safe team. The only exciting thing in there is Will Price, but is he enough to add a spark to this pretty bland team?
Yeah, we'll find out in about 4 weeks' time when he's being nudged as potentially an NRL move. If he's either going to rip it up and be in the NRL in 2 years, or he's going to turn out like Ollie Ashelbot and struggle for championship sides, and because he's picked up an injury and whatever. We move on though to a team that we struggled to place. We were looking at this squad and we were going, they might even finish as high as 5th. They might even finish 10th. Like, we don't know. But they've brought in Luke Gale. They've brought in Darnell McIntosh. Joe Leverdew has just signed. Congratulations to him, by the way. He's just got engaged. And one of the oddest signings I've seen, Kane Evans has signed. Hull FC 8th. Take it away, Robin. They're your team.
Yeah. I mean, like this links well to Huddersfield because Darnell McIntosh is one of those players that came through that rough period at Huddersfield and they've let him go. But I mean, a great signing for Hull FC. I really like him. I think he's really exciting. So that's definitely an improvement from like they lost Paraimo and Fanua, but I definitely think that McIntosh is an improvement. Kane Evans, again, it's an odd one. I mean, he's massive, so he's gonna lay a platform. He's gonna be able to punch through the defence. But his discipline is a massive issue. So, he's a risk. He's a real risk. But then obviously Luke Gale coming in from Leeds. For me, I don't really rate Luke Gale. I don't think Leeds got the best out of him. I think after that mint year he had at Cass, we've not seen the best of him. But maybe he can do it at Hull FC. But I feel like Hull FC probably got him on a bit of a deal after the way it finished with Leeds. Is he an upgrade on Sneed? I don't know. I rate them at about the same, I guess. At least Sneed is like a very, very consistent kicker. So I think it's an interesting squad. They've kept like the main star, Jake Connor. If he can keep his discipline up, he could have a good year. Josh Reynolds, I really rate him, so hopefully he can have a good season as well. But overall, it's not too much change for Hull FC, and so that's why I don't think that we'll see a massive difference from the team that we saw last year. No,
not at all. Toby, the Hull FC forward pack is one of the biggest, probably most powerful you're going to get this year. Liggy Sow, Danny Houghton, Chris Sartai, Andre Savilio, Manu Mao, Jordan Lane. You throw in Joe Cater, Kane Evans, Brad Fash. Jack Brown, Jordan Johnson, Josh Bowden, Scott Taylor. That is a pack. Josh Griffin obviously can play in the second row as well. They're not going to struggle going forward, and they've got a quality. They've got quality in the halves. They've got Jamie Shaw probably going to start the season at fullback with the Jake Connor injury. The likes of Ben McNamara, Joe Lavadua's come in, Cameron Scott, Connor Wynn, youngsters in behind them that have played. Once again, they've got a 29-man squad, youngsters that have played that can come in, replace players that might be injured or need a rest. But like we said, not too much change. Brett Hodgson's been there a year now. Not a lot changed last year. Is the fact that he's going to have had a whole year with this team. They're not going to, and he's taken out the players he doesn't want. He's brought in players he does want. Does that make them a force to be maybe an underdog, a force to be reckoned with? Because we thought that they could be a playoff team.
Yeah, it's a hard one to call. They're all players who seem to not play with structure, or rebel against structure. Maybe Luke Gale's sort of the force that comes in and changes that. You talk about the massive forward pack. I think I just have to refer to what Kane Evans once wrote on his wrist for a game to say this kind of attitude.
Google it.
Yeah, if you don't know, Google it. Because if he says it, if Toby says it, that's a lot more. It's a lot more editing work for me to do, and there's just it's not worth it.
No, I'm not going to say it. I was just saying that's the attitude that Hull FC might be coming in with, and I think I don't know. I feel like they're a team of individuals. I don't think Hodgson managed to pull them together as a team last season. We'll see what happens this season. As you say, he's got some players he wants in there. He's got experienced halfback who's played in a different style to the way Snead plays. Maybe it's a positive change. I think it's, but I personally just think that this squad looks very similar to last season's on the whole, and that it's not really much of an improvement from them. No,
obviously the faithful will be hoping that they can finish above their city rivals in Hull KR, who had a really fantastic run last season. And we said if we put the squads next to each other, they're really similar. But we don't have Hull KR finishing 7th. We've got Cass finishing 7th. Like, that's a huge drop in terms of that Cass team. Like, a few years ago, we'd have been saying, they need to be finishing top 3. They need to be guaranteed playoffs every year. But that's just not them. Like, they've not been classy Cass since they made the grand final. They've been nowhere near it. They've made so many changes this year as well. Lee Radford's come in with Andy Last, and they've signed so many players. They've brought 9 in. They've got rid of Foster. They've got rid of Senny Lefeo. Millington and Shenton retired. Bieniek went to London Broncos, and Matauti and Oliver Holmes buggered off to Warrington Wolves. Do you think they're going to regret getting rid of any of those players?
They've lost 3 second rowers, and their solution in the second row is bringing in Kenny Edwards and moving Adam Milner to the edge for the first time in his career. I think that we've spoke about the excitement that Alex Sutcliffe brings to that pack, and there's a potential that Kenny Edwards and Alex Sutcliffe could build a very entertaining second row partnership. But I think that they've definitely lost some of their consistency in the second row. As for the rest of the team, Lee Radford's built his prime Hull FC team with a sprinkling of Cass in there. I actually think that what we're going to see from Lee Radford is good rugby league, and I think that it's going to be actually a relatively positive 7th place finish, where they come out of the season saying we're just one position away, or we're just two players away from pushing on. I think one of those positions is going to be half-back. Gareth O'Brien, Jake Truman look like the likely half partners, with Callum McClelland actually being missed out of the matchday squad for the first round, and Danny Richardson, he was out of favour last year. We'll see. Maybe he's had a good pre-season. Obviously, Paul McShane had the season of his life last season and is going to be trying to guide that pack, which now has has Joe Westerman, at the back of the scrum. I think George Lawler comes into that pack as well. I think they've got enough size there. When you talk about Matagi as well, in that sort of deeper squad. So I think they've got the foundations of a strong squad, but I don't see the players who are just going to make line breaks, find cut-out passes, this kind of thing. If Jake Truman is back to his best, then potentially. But based on what we saw last season, I think they really are missing something in that spine to push them into the top 6.
Yeah, 100%. That's why they're down just outside the top 6, is because they have a really they're not inexperienced. They're just not amazing halves. Like, Gareth O'Brien has been given the number 31 shirt, and he's not going to start ahead of Nia Levels. They've got 2 quality fullbacks at the club, but they've put Truman at 6. Fair enough. He's done well. He's earned it. Danny Richardson was not amazing at Saints, and he hasn't been amazing at Cass. Callum McClelland has come in, and he hasn't really played. And that's why they're so low down. Yes, they've got Jason Gary, Sasaya Feki, Lewis Peachy, Chase Blair, Greg Eden. Like, these guys, James Clare, like, they've got so many outside backs. Like, so many. But the player that stands out for me is Jake Mamo. He's going to be pivotal for that team. He has to stay injury free, doesn't he, Robin?
Yeah. Jake Mamo's definitely the sign of the season for Cass. I think if you look at the team, they've been in a bit of a steady decline under Darryl Powell, and it had the potential this year to be, changing from Darryl Powell, and a load of players went and followed him. We've had quite a few retirements. Forgotten the.
Millington and Shenton are both retired.
That's it, Shenton, the captain as well. So another big cultural change at the club. But I do think that Lee Radford's good enough to do the job. I think a lot rests on Jake Truman's shoulders. I think he's obviously had injuries all of last year, but I think a lot rests on him in this team. Like you said. Yeah, it's gonna. It's not very exciting. Hopefully that they can just get by this year. I mean, we've put them in 7th. Hopefully they can get by and build from there. But again, it's quite an aging squad. There's not really any winners in that team. If you look at it from that point of view, there's experience, but there's no winners. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting year. I could see it being totally derailed if it wasn't for Lee Radford. So that's at least the positive that Cass fans can cling to.
Yeah, 100%. The next sort of few spots we ummed and ahed. We were like, should this team finish as high as what we think? Like, I thought that they weren't as good as potentially Cass and Hull FC. We were not arguing, but we were discussing sort of just really quickly, like not in depth, about the next sort of team up. And the main reason they're as low as 6th is because of the new head coach. But the reason they're as high as 6th is because the quality of player that they possess. Wigan Warriors, 1 to 17, well, arguably you include Ethan Havard, Pierce Paul, Jai Field in there, and Hanley. But like 1 to 21, outside of their top 21 man squad, or whatever Pete deems to be his strongest 21 man squad, it's not amazingly deep, and doesn't seem like it's going to do amazingly well. Lots of players, very important players, have either left or retired again. Hastings and Gildup both have gone to the NRL. Manfredi's retired, which is really unfortunate because he was outstanding when he was injury free. Tony Clubb has retired. Amir Burra's gone to Salford. Bullock's gone to Warrington, and then Matty Nicholson and Alex Sutton, 2 young lads, have gone on loan to Newcastle. They've brought in Cade Ellis. They've brought in Patrick Margot, and they've brought in Cade Cust, all from the NRL. Toby, you're excited about these NRL players, but you're also a bit wary of, especially, Patrick Margot, aren't you?
I mean, I think all 3 of them are fringe NRL players, and all 3 of them have been lost in the shuffle in the NRL. I don't think any of them are NRL rejects. I don't think that that's fair to say that these are players who weren't performing in the NRL. They were players who, Cade Cust, he had an injury which stopped him being an effective halfback in the NRL. Manly only liked him at hooker, and there wasn't a spot for him there. He wants to play halfback. He will score tries because he's small, he's agile, he's quick, he's nippy. But it's worrying if he'll be able to sort of play those distributing the first receiver role, distribute the ball out wide. Margot and Ellis, they're both solid forwards. I don't think they'll do much wrong, but you compare that to an Alex Walmsley or Luke Thompson when he was in Super League. They're not going to be those players who are crashing the meter, making records. They're not. I think they will be solid. I don't think they'll do much wrong. It's just something where I don't think it's an ambitious signing. In fact, it's quite funny when you look at the losses, and they've kind of got like-for-like replacements almost in each place, where you can say that Margot and Ellis come to replace Clubb and Bullock, Thornley comes to replace Gildart, Miskey comes to replace
Manfredi,
and then Cuss comes to replace Hastings, and I find it strange that it's almost feels as if they've just rinsing and repeating last season under an unproven head coach, but they're doing it with an Ian Thornley who was all right for Lee.
Yeah, he was nothing special for a Lee team that got relegated last season. Hardacre will fit in at centre again. He's going to be their main goal kicker. They've got Thomas Luluai, who's now going into his 20th professional rugby league season. We know for a fact that this team is nowhere near the team that Sean Wayne led to multiple titles. But it's got Matt Peet as head coach. It's got Lee Breers and Sean O'Loughlin as the assistant coaches. Do you think they tried to have that cultural reset and they've gone back to the old sort of Sean Wayne-esque sort of mentality? Or do you think this is going to be Matt Peet coming in with his own style and it's going to go either wrong or right? Like, I think, for me, in my head, I think it's trying to go back to the Sean Wayne-esque and pray that it works. But it could be something totally... It could be something totally different, couldn't it, Robin?
Yeah, this is another club that's sort of in a bit of a transition, and you look at the players that they've lost, and they haven't really improved on them with their signings. I think it's interesting what you say about Matt Peet. He's come through the Wigan system as well, so he's relatively untested. So they must see something in him. It probably suggests to me that they're going for like the Wigan style, so maybe back to that Sean Wayne style. It'll be interesting to see how he goes. But like you say, this isn't an exciting Wigan side for me. I am interested to see how Cade Cuss goes, and your mate Abbas Miskey that you gave high raps.
I like him.
Some first team game time. So, but yeah, another transitionary season and difficult to quite say how it's going to go.
Yeah, before we move on to the team in fifth, I just want to point out that Jai Field for Wigan this year, he has to stay injury free. It was heartbreaking to see him do his hamstring in his first game and miss the majority of last season, if not all of last season. I can't remember when he came back. Kai Pearce-Paul has had a year of Super League under his belt. He's going to have to play really well. Havard, Partington, Byrne, they're players that are going to really, really have to mature. They struggled last year controlling themselves. They got into a little bit of an argument. They got into handbags, and ultimately that's where Wigan lost games, is because they're the inexperience of their team. Harry Smith, I feel for him a little bit because I feel like he deserves to start. But he's not going to play ahead of Cust or Luluai or Powell if they shift anyone else around, is he?
There's a strong potential that without Bevan French in the first few weeks, that there is some sort of shift which sees Jai Field play in the back line. And you see Smith and Cust 6 and 7 with Luluai coming off the bench as a hooker. That's what I like the sound of to an extent. I think Harry Smith. I think that's the thing is the Wigan way per se is one where pretty much everyone numbered 14 to 25 is going to play for the badge and like with unrivaled passion, and that's what was missing last season. We saw it sort of in Sean Wayne's last season. We saw Oliver Partington, I think it was, play phenomenally. Looked like he was going to be the next Alex Walmsley, and then under Adrian Lamb just sort of level out. And I think that's where it's really going to matter is Morgan Smithy, Oliver Partington, Harry Smith, are these academy players going to push on to become starters by the end of this season? And if they don't, then I don't think that the experience in that starting 13 will carry Wigan into the top 5, which is why I suggest they go 6th. You sort of concur on that.
Yeah, 100%. Like we said, it was really difficult to sort of pick the teams from 6th to 9th. We felt that Wigan's sort of experience and the way they might play with a new coach could put them lower. We might put them a little bit higher, and it was really difficult to sort of pick that middle. 1 to 3 we found quite easy. 12 to 10 we found pretty easy, but that middle it's not going to. I'll be honest, I don't think it's potentially going to look like it's going to look totally different to what we predicted. But we believe that this is the strength and the order of the strength of the teams that we have. I just think we know that it's going to look so different, and if it is right, well done to us for getting it right, like without much looking at. The team in 5th though, it's the last team that I sort of looked at a little bit, and it's a team that I like. I like this Warrington Wolves side. Yes, they haven't changed loads, but they've made changes that needed to be made. The Jake Mamo loss is huge for them. But I feel Blake Austin, Tom Linen, Sami Kabula, Akuala and Pat Moran, their time was sort of up. They'd done their shift. They played well. But they couldn't quite do it. Every year it's Warrington's year. And we know that it's going to be difficult for them. They've brought in Peter Matautia. They've brought in Oliver Holmes. Greg Minikin has come from Hull KR. Joe Bullock and Billy Magoulias have strengthened that forward pack. And James Harrison, probably a signing that Fev probably really didn't want to let go. If they'd have got promoted, he would have stayed, no doubt. But he's come up to Super League now, and their forwards, they're so deep in the forwards. But if they get an injury, if they get 2 injuries in the backs, you're looking at playing Josh Thewlis and Connor Wrench in the centres and fullback after potentially 6 weeks. That's where that's going to let them down, isn't it? They don't have enough backs, do they?
No, I think you're right. I think that's a very fair assessment. The backs are lacking. I mean, to be honest, they're not my favourite. Like you say, there's a big hole there where Jake Mamo's left. I think the most exciting thing for me is Widdop and Williams. And I know I said it when George first came over halfway through last year, and I don't think we really saw the best of them. But I mean, really, they're 2 like international quality halfbacks. So with such a good platform in the forwards, you'd like to think that they can really shift the ball around and win some games. It's just whether they've got the outside backs to do the job for them. I mean, Stephan Ratchford has been a great player for a really long time, but he's sort of, he's getting older. His influence on the game's declining. And when you get to that, when you sort of take that into consideration, the strongest back for me is Toby King. I just think one centre is not really enough.
No, Peter Matautia comes in. He's given the number 3 shirt, but he can play fullback, standoff. Like, he's very versatile. Again, Ratchford, fullback, standoff, scrum half, loose forward. He could probably play hooker if you really asked him to. The players that they have from 14 down or 14 up, if you're looking at shirt number: Jason Clark, Joe Bullock, Danny Walker, Matt Davis, Billy Magoulias, Rob Mulhern, James Harrison, Greg Minikin. From 14 to 21, solid, really solid Super League experience, can be trusted to play. You know they're going to be able to pull on a shirt. From there, you've got Josh Thewlis, Connor Wrench, Ellis Longstaff, Ellis Robson. Rob Butler comes in, a former London lad, Riley Dean and Aribe Doro. Jacob Gannon is also there, Morgan Burgess and Tom Whitehead, 3 academy lads. 31-man squad, deep enough. Daryl Powell has a huge job to do. After losing his job at Cass and seeing the steady decline that Cass had, he has to do a fantastic job this first year, doesn't he?
you think of the way Darryl Powell had Luke Gale play in that season when Cass got to the grand final. George Williams, under Darryl Powell's coaching, could be double that player. And that is the thing. That is the only reason I'm interested in Warrington this year, is because I do have a real soft spot for George Williams since seeing him tear up the NRL with Canberra as a sort of player that no one really knew. I agree with sort of everything the two of you have said about Warrington, and that for me is the one thing, is I don't care who's around him. I think George Williams is genuinely, if he performs at his best under Darryl Powell, I think it's like a guaranteed man of steel waiting. So it's get that in as
that is a shout and a half. That is an absolute shout. Does one of you want to ask me if it's Warrington's year before we move on?
I already know the answer.
Go on.
Is it Warrington's year?
No, it's not. It's because it's not. Of course it's not. They're never gonna win it. Warrington are going to be the only team to play in Super League in its entirety until there's a name change or the structure change and Super League name goes, that will be in it from the start to the finish and never win it.
And never win.
They're going to be the only team that doesn't get relegated and never win it.
The thing is, like, Warrington's goal is to win it, and so bringing in Darryl Powell is a great coach and he can get a lot out of his halfbacks. But is he a winner? Like, I don't know if that was the right.
They'd have been better off bringing in Brian McDermott.
Yeah, that's exactly who I was going to go for, because this is a team that wants to get over the final hurdle, not get to the grand final. They've got to actually win one.
Yeah, Darryl Powell got to a grand final and didn't win it. Because his players let him. But arguably, I'd say his players let him down on that. I don't know if that was Darryl Powell's fault particularly, and that's a totally different story that we should have talked about 4 years ago or 5 years ago when it happened. But Darryl Powell has struggled with that cast recently, and I think he needs to get the best out of the players that he's got, especially his best 19, because they're the players that he's going to need every week consistently. 4th place now is a team that played unreal last season and shocked us, and we were all on the hype train, and we were praying that they got to the grand final. We were praying that they'd shock one of Saints or Catalan or whoever at Old Trafford. But Hull KR, 4th place. Only the players that I look at and go, okay, they probably didn't really need to get rid of them, are Greg Minikin and George Lawler, players that played for them a bit, were consistent enough, did the job they were asked to do. They never really started. They weren't key to them, but they've replaced them with Lachlan Coote, Sam Wood, Frankie Holton, Tom Garrett, and then Phoenix Lalu Tongarai has come in from Keighley on a 1-year loan. Toby, you're happy with the signing of Frankie Holton, aren't you?
Yeah, Frankie Holton and Tom Garrett, they're both the kind of players where I think they're at a point where you've basically picked up a player fresh out of not out of a youth academy, but a player who's got senior experience, who, if he was in your youth academy, would be coming fresh out of your youth academy. Yeah. Already got those games in the belt. They're both powerful players, and they're both potentially really exciting as depth players for Hull KR. As for the rest of the squad, I'm a little bit worried about them being a bit slow at centre with Takarangi and Kenny Dowell if they play a full season as centres. I think they might be a little bit slow. So the same goes at that sort of. If you look across the whole team, Ryan Hall isn't that fast anymore. Maybe it's just sort of the style of play. Lachlan Coote, obviously an incredible signing, and Jordan Abdul had an incredible season. Mikey Lewis produced some incredible moments, and those two as a halves combo have the potential to be the best halves combination. Also have the potential to have just been 1-year wonders. But we want to ride this train because I think Tony Smith does an incredible job of saying these are the players I can get. This is what they're good at. I'm gonna make them play the way they want to play. And it's not even that. When I read out these players' names, I don't actually get excited for them because I remember them doing incredible things as individuals. Yeah. I just know that as a team, this whole KR team is going to upset teams and they're going to play well and they're going to be solid defensively under Tony Smith. And that's just exciting to see them sort of really potentially push into the top 4.
Yeah, and Robin, that's the difference between this whole KR side and the Huddersfield side that's ageing as well. Both the teams are probably last chance saloon sides. One's being coached by David Hodgson, and the other's being coached by perennial winner Tony Smith. Like, that's the only reason we've put. Well, not the only reason, but that's one of the main reasons that Hull KR for us finish as high as they do. Is Tony? It's just Tony Smith, isn't it? And the signing of Lachlan Coote, obviously.
Yeah, Lachlan Coote's massive. I think that's. Hull KR have absolutely smashed it there. I love Tony Smith. I love the way that he plays, and all the players in this team just suit him so well, and that's why they did so well last year. And personally, I say all aboard the Mikey Lewis hype train. I love him. I'm so excited to watch this guy's career. It's only just begun. He played a couple of games for York and he absolutely smashed it for us. And then he turned up for Hull KR at the right time of the season. And he's not shy. You know, he's only young, and he's not the biggest guy, is he? But he's up for the big games. He sticks it to the props in the middle and makes it hard work for them. So I'm really excited by this Hull KR team. I think they're the people's team. We all want to see them do well again. And I think, like we were saying, with Tony Smith in charge, it's absolutely doable.
Yeah, and they've got plenty of international talent. Lachlan Coote's in there. You've got Takarangi and Kenny Dowell who have played internationally. Ryan Hall. Jordan Abdul was on the England books. I think he's in the main, the wider squad ready for the World Cup at the end of the year. You've got Kane Lynette in there. Corbin Sims, Jimmy Kinehorst, German international, Ethan Ryan, Sam Wood, Lali Tonga guy will probably get some games for Samoa when he's in a few years' time when he's a little bit older and he's got that experience underneath him. Young players coming in, mixing with winners, with a winning coach and a style of rugby that everyone likes and is defensively solid, and when they've got the ball in hand is quite good. If they don't make the playoffs, that's a bad season, isn't it?
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, I think you're right.
Toby, would you agree on that? Do you think they have to make the playoffs, don't they? If you're a Robins fan, you're sat there looking and you're licking your lips this year because you know you're better than the other 2/3 of the league.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because if you didn't have such a good season last season, then you're happy top 8. All of a sudden, it's top 4 or bust because off.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little bit worried about their halfback depth. They very quickly had one injury, and Rowan Milnes is playing.
Yeah.
An awful lot. I mean, it's not on their official losses, but they they started last season with like Jamie Ellis and Joe Keys, I think, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah. So a little bit, a little bit weak in terms of depth there, but I feel like only Smith builds his players of steel, and it won't be too big an issue. But yeah, I think that is, unless they get an injury to a key position, absolutely you want top 4.
Yeah, 100%. And the team that we've got finishing above them is a team that their squad is not amazingly deep. They've lost loads of players. Stevie Ward and Kyle Eastman both retired. Yes, Eastman didn't play a lot. Sutcliffe to Cass is a huge loss. Vuniyayawa to Salford. Hurrell's gone to Saints. Luke Briscoe's gone to Fev. Robert Louis gone to the Cowboys over in the NRL. Luke Gale's gone to Hull FC. And then they've lost Corey Hall to Wakefield as well. On top of that, Callum McClellan's also left. And 3 youngsters, Corey Johnson, Maurice Mustafa and Jared O'Connor, have gone to Bradford on loan. Yes, those 3 youngsters can come back into the team if they're needed to, and they have been given squad numbers. But even with those guys in there, you've got a 32-man squad. 3 of those are Levi Edwards, Ollie Field, and then Jack Sinfield. 3 academy lads who probably aren't going to get much game time this year. Small team, but a quality team. Their letdown is going to be potentially Richard Agar, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if they had Tony Smith, then I'd be backing them for a grand final appearance. But yeah, I think it's I really like this Leeds side. I watched them on Boxing Day. Obviously, it's a pre-season game and it was against Wakefield, but I was really impressed. I really like Austin and Caesar halfbacks. I think they're quite close friends as well. So I feel like that just adds that extra bit of chemistry there. They've played together in the past. Caesar, we've obviously seen him do well in the Super League. Hopefully he can stay fit this year. I really like Harry Newman. I think that he's got to have a good year, and I think he's got a potential to be a marquee player for Leeds. or they'll lose him. Really, he's that good. So he's hitting his peak. James Bentley coming into the squad, and obviously we heard the reasons why he wanted to join was just because it's Leeds and he supports them, and I think that adds the value that it's not quantifiable, but it definitely boosts the culture and adds that extra motivation to the players around him. I like this Leeds side. I think it's going to be a good year for Leeds. They've got Cruz Leeming and Brad Dwyer, so they've got the half hooker role absolutely nailed on. Richie Milers obviously can come in and fill in for Jack Walker or in the halves, so that's another. It keeps teams guessing when they're playing against them. Where's the attack going to come from? So just hopefully they can they had some inconsistency issues last year. I think they're gonna stay on top of it now they've got Caesar and Austin. But I'd like to see a good year from Leeds. I think they've got the potential to do that. Yeah,
Toby, a signing that stands out for me isn't James Bentley, because we know the reasons why he's going. It's not the halfbacks in Caesar and Austin. It's David Fisatua. Like, that's huge. Like, he was in the preseason friendly a couple of weeks ago. The shot that he put in, he got a lot of stick for it, but it was perfectly legal. And it was like a lot of like people watching it going, he shouldn't have put that big of a shot on such a young kid in a preseason friendly. But he didn't put a big shot on a young kid. He could put a big shot on an 18-year-old making his debut. That was a slip of the tongue. He put a big shot on an 18-year-old making his debut that decided to run straight at one of the biggest wingers and probably one potentially top try scorer in the league this season, alongside Ash Hanley, Harry Newman, Liam Sutcliffe, Jack Walker. In 4 out of 5 of those back 5 are academy products.
Yeah, David Fisatua, from what I remember from his 2021 with New Zealand Warriors, the ball slipped through his fingers far too many times. However, I've got a feeling like the Warriors maybe weren't using him for his size out wide, or they weren't using him to put in huge shots like that. Maybe they weren't using him to make the meters that Leeds are going to use him for. And I think, there's a reason he's been given the number 2, and there's a reason, that a team with money like Leeds, who probably had other winger options, have chosen him.
Yeah.
I do want to make the note that Austin and Caesar once finished second in the NRL as a halves combination for the Canberra Raiders. They then lost 2 games in the playoffs. We don't talk about it. But so that's an incredible partnership. But I do like this Leeds team. I think that they've maintained that Leeds academy throughout the coaching turmoil, and Richard Agar worries me slightly because I was really excited for him at the start of last season, and he just didn't start off on a winning run. And then the team built into the season, and all of a sudden they became very hard to beat. They need to start this season hard to beat if they want to have a potential grand final winning season. We'll see if it's possible as the year goes on.
Yeah, definitely. And I was saying 4 out of that back 5, or starting 1 to 5, are academy products. You include Mikolaj Aledzki as another English talent. Cruz Leeming could play for England if he comes through. James Bentley is a Leeds Rhinos fan. Brad Dwyer, Alex Mellor, Richie Myler, Cam Smith, Tom Holroyd. This is where it gets really, really interesting. Morgan Gammon, Sam Waters, Jack Broadbent, Jared O'Connor, Corey Johnson, Muiz Mustafi, Liam Tyndall, and then Edwards, Field and Zinfield. The Leeds Academy produced loads of players that stayed at the club for over a decade and won multiple league titles. Is this a squad that Richard Agar, even if he doesn't stay, potentially Sean Long, Jamie Jones Buchanan, and whoever else follows, is going to be able to keep together for over a decade? Yes, we know there's going to be some changes here and there. Is it going to be a squad that's going to be stay together for and become another dynasty? Is it going to be able to win a treble in 7 years' time or 5 years' time?
I think it's definitely there's definitely parallels there. I think the Leeds' problem over the last few years, since that golden generation, is every year it's we replaced the golden generation, and it feels like we're finally getting out of that stage, and they're actually looking at the players that they've got, and they're rating them and judging them in their own right. So I don't want to draw too many comparisons, because I think it's been good for Leeds to get away from that, and I think that they need to write their own page in history now and not be the follow-on from the golden generation.
Yeah, I don't think this is necessarily the follow-on. This is a new generation, isn't it? It's
a winning formula. What they're doing is absolutely, like you say, it's they're building a team that has the potential to have that consistency together over a really long period of time and be super successful because of it. So it's absolutely, Leeds are doing the right thing, which you would expect from a team with so much resources and such a massive fan base.
Yeah, and we changed this really late, and we thought Leeds could potentially finish second. And the only reason we haven't put them second is because about half an hour before we started recording tonight, Robin went, is it too late to put Catalan in second? And just as I was making the graphic, I went, actually, you know what? You're probably right. Catalan Dragons, they've lost James Maloney and they've lost Joel Tompkins. Other than that, they've brought in Tyrone May from the Penrith Panthers, Dylan Napa from the Canterbury Bulldogs, and Mitchell Pierce from the Newcastle Knights. Other than the fact that they can be very inconsistent, and they used to be very inconsistent, and there's the vaccination issue going on in France. These players are going to get to a grand final if they are the same team and the same players that we had. And they perform the same way they played last year, aren't they? They have to.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, we changed it last minute because I was thinking in my head, like, just rather than thinking why Leeds good, why wouldn't Catalan finish at the top of the table?
Yeah.
Like, it's impressive that a team's lost James Maloney, this NRL Premiership winner, State of Origin winner, and they're still like this. It's not actually that affected them that much. They've replaced him with Mitchell Pierce, who's first year in the Super League, but like every other really successful NRL halfback, it's probably going to come over here and absolutely smash it. I think when I look at the team, it's exciting. I really hope we get another good year from them. I think that they actually, despite having a really good team last year, they also managed to get a load of young French players in the team, and now they're at a position where these young French players have got experience. They've followed a team all the way up to a grand final, and so they're looking like even their backups are really, really strong. So adding to that, you've got Sam Tompkins. It's just like this is a team that absolutely could just do what they did last year all over again without a question of a doubt.
Yeah, and one thing they don't have to do this year is travel to England once more because they've got an away game in Toulouse, and so they don't have to travel as far for one of their away games.
Reducing the carbon footprint of Super League.
Exactly, they're going net zero.
Let's just move everyone to France.
Hang on, all the English teams now have to fly to France.
Yeah, they all have to fly to France. Yeah, a bit awkward, but like you said, they lose James Maloney, who goes to Lesignan. We still don't know why. Like, what a mad move that is, and well done to Lesignan for. Yeah, he wants to go and play with Kristen in the French league. But Mitch Pierce, despite his off-field history, he's one of the best halfbacks that are still currently playing, isn't he? He could easily just go back to the NRL tomorrow and start, couldn't he? Back at Newcastle.
Yeah, he would have been playing in the NRL this season if he didn't want the ridiculous pay packet that Catalans have offered him. Weird that I think that there's a little less dynamic, a few less dynamics in the pairing between Pierce and Drinkwater as there was Maloney and Drinkwater. I think they're both very sort of seven organised, all game players, and I think there's a chance that Tyrone May or Arthur Moore end up playing alongside Mitchell Pierce after a few weeks of the season. But all they've done effectively is they've got the same squad from last year. They've improved on Joel Tompkins. They've improved. Well, they've not improved, but they've got the next best aging NRL halfback.
Yeah. And
then they've added a absolute utility player who I'm surprised Penrith wanted to let go. I know there was some sort of off-wall issues, but it's something where I don't think that Penrith would let him go otherwise. And it's an exciting team again. Really excited to see if Arthur Moore plays even more this season than he did last, and the impact he can have on game. And again, maybe an injury to the back line starts to create a little bit of worry in regards to Arthur Romano and Tyrone May being their only real cover at centre and wing. But other than that, we expect a repeat season from Catalans, I think.
Yeah, 100%. We are praying that Catalan finish second because we love how they play and we're glad that the history of Catalan being in the Super League is the way it is, and we're glad that they weren't allowed to get relegated, because if they had got relegated, we would never have been in this position where we're going, oh, this is fantastic. Catalans are one of the strongest teams in the league, probably the strongest teams that we've ever seen come out of France. This is what PSG should have been back in the 90s. Like, they shouldn't have let PSG. What happened to PSG happened. This is what PSG should have been. We should have been saying this 10 years ago, but we're finally here, and I'm glad we're there. Robin, the only reason they're second is because of this Saints side. James Bentley's gone. Joel Thompson's retired. Kevin Nagama looked like he was retiring, but now he's gone to the Sydney Roosters, which is mental. Theo Farge was always going to leave. We knew that. And Lachlan Coote's gone to Hull KR. The only reason Lachlan Coote's gone to Hull KR is because Jack Wellesby's so bloody good. It's because Johnny Lomax is so good, and Will Hopewati's come in and he can play full-back and centre and stand off and wing. Curtis Sirenen's come in. James Bell's come in. Conrad Hurrell's been brought in from Leeds, so that's a swap with James Bentley, really, in terms of the clubs and the teams, and 1-for-1. And then Joey Lussick has come in as a hooker as well. This team, another team, just like Leeds, where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of their 1 to 13 are academy products. And it's their strongest 13. Oh, he's gone. Toby's gone as well. He's back. Is he back? Come on, Toby. Flip your camera on.
That's shocking.
That is shocking. Oh, you know what? This week's going to be fun. I was just saying, I don't know if you heard, Toby. 9 of their 1 to 13 academy products at Saints. You've got Jake Wingfield, Josh Sim, Ben Davis, Dan Norman, Matty Foster, Sam Royal, Joe Bennison, all in the squad, academy products. What's going on with him? Toby. What is going on there? I'll cut it out. I'm just going to carry on recording. He's back.
First time lucky. Come on.
I'm so sorry.
What is going on?
Like, because everything works really, really well, and then all of a sudden the Wi-Fi's like, "No, I'm weak," and then but it's not like I don't lose Wi-Fi. I can still.
They do this to me on Monday, but I've been lucky tonight.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what's going on. Has he dropped out again? Yeah. Is he frozen?
I'm like dropping in and out now.
No, that's fine. But I was just saying, like, the majority of this Saints team, just like Leeds, is an academy product. But they've always sort of been able to do that. The majority of their academy products now are solid Super League, if not international level players. You're looking at Jack Wellesby being one of the best players in the league. The kid's he's still a kid. Like, he's 20 years old. He's just turned 20 years, or he's turning 21 this season. 3 years ago, he probably played a handful of games, and people were like, "Oh, he could be pretty decent." You're looking at him now, going, "He's going to start for England in the World Cup, isn't he?" Like, I would. Why would you not start? Why would you not be in your starting 13 in the World Cup?
Last season, painful watching him have to start on the bench.
Yeah, horrible.
And the fact that he became centre of the year because no one knew where to put him, because he's played everywhere and he's played fantastic in every position, and he had to be in there as a bench player as well. Yeah, phenomenal. We love Saints when they're playing at full strength, and there's no reason they're not going to finish first.
No, and this is something we sort of spoke about in the chat earlier. I think it was yesterday or the day before. And Robin, you said, have we ever had a team win 4 grand finals in a row? Not in the Super League era, we haven't. Wigan have won seven old First Division titles. South Sydney won 5 old, like, sort of NRL titles back in the 20s. and St George won 11 on the trot from 56 to 66. But in the modern professional era, like in terms of since the Super League wars, no team has won 4 grand finals in a row. This Saints team potentially wins 5, 6, 7, depending on how these other teams react to their dominance, don't they?
Yeah, they're that good that it's totally achievable, that remarkable stat, and to say like this is a salary cap sport, and they've had a lot of changes. They've had players coming in and out over that time. They've had a different coach even, and they're still dominant. So it's really impressive to see, and I think as a league we should be proud to be able to witness this squad that it's been able to be put together. I think it's actually easier when looking at their squad this year to say where's the weakness, because there's that little weaknesses. Yeah. I mean, for me, Conrad Hurrell's going to be interesting this year. I think he'll be sort of a backup player, maybe coming off the bench. And I don't think we saw the best of him from Leeds
towards the end.
I don't think we ever saw him at full fitness. So I wonder if they'll sort of get that out of him as well. That'll be interesting to see. I mean, yeah, it's just such an exciting team. I just like. Normally, I would be sick of seeing such a successful side that just take over the Super League, but I love them. I love them. I think, like you say, that homegrown talent is throughout the squad, and Jack Wellesby is just like, it's another player. It's going to be exciting to see his career, and he's an improvement from Coote. Like you go from a man of steel and going, no, actually, we'll take this 20-year-old lad. So, Will Hopoate coming in at centre, another great signing. They somehow still improving on the squad. So yeah, really exciting and absolute favourites this year to win it.
Yeah, the thing that I'm really happy to see is actually Lewis Dodd coming in, being given the number 7 shirt. He played quite a bit last year, but Christian Wolf's gone, this is your shirt. Like, you are the number 7 for St Helens. There's loads of history in that shirt. Go and make it yours. Like, become the next, like, Hall of Fame number 7 that Saints have. He's gone. He's gone again. He's still got his badge rating to do. He better not leave. Like,
we've got one club to go. One team left.
Oh, I've switched to hotspot.
Yeah, good idea. You switched to hotspot. I was just saying, like, Lewis Dodd's been given this number 7 shirt, and he's I don't know if there's even pressure on him.
It's the fact that in the time that they've won 3 titles, they've gone, Danny Richardson, no, I don't want you. Theo Farge, no, don't want you. Lewis Dodd, go on, we'll try you for now.
Yeah.
They've probably got the next halfback lined up anyway. So I'd honestly at this point, worst case scenario, he makes 20 tackles a game. Like it just doesn't feel anything like that. What I like the most about Saints this year was when they signed Will Hopoate. I was a little bit like, he doesn't have the electric pace and ability to break through tackles that Kevin Nakama has. Yeah. So what we did was they were like, oh, we'll have Conrad Hurrell as well. And then we've definitely got one of our centres is going to be fantastic. And yeah, that's why I think Saints are just going to be unstoppable.
Yeah, and these Will Hopoate, Conrad Hurrell, Ignatius Parsi, these Tongan players know Christian Wolf. They know exactly how he wants to play his rugby. It worked with Tonga. It's going to work with Saints. It does work with Saints. As a Saints fan, I'm not a Saints fan, but as a Saints fan, you have to be excited for the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years, don't you? With this young squad coming through, especially with the talent in their academy that always seems to produce players, even if it's one a year, and that one replaces, say James Roby retires this year, they've got Taylor Pemberton coming through the academy in the squad this year. Joey Lussick's got a 3-year deal, 2 years for Taylor Pemberton playing behind Joey Lussick and James Roby for a year, and then being the backup to Joey Lussick, or maybe having a year out on loan before he comes in. Unreal. Dan Hill is being named in the number 29 shirt as another fullback. Jack Wellesby's 21 years old. Why have they got another teenage fullback? They've got 2 teenage fullbacks in John Bennison and Daniel Hill, just ready to go if Wellesby gets injured or he has to play in the halfbacks. It's fantastic to see. They've done it well. They always seem to be doing it right, and they're going to win the League Leaders' Shield. They're going to be in the grand final, and you heard it here now. They're going to win. They're going to win the title again. They're going to win it 4 years in a row and be the first Super League team to ever do it.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
Do you agree? Do you make that 3 out of 3, Toby?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the moment that, Dan Norman, who's an ex-North Wales Crusaders player, gets into the Saints squad, they're guaranteed to win something. So, of course I agree.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good to see. We do need to move on. This weekend is not just a Super League weekend. It's not just a Championship weekend. It's Challenge Cup 3rd round tie weekend. I'm not going to a game, and I'm gutted. I wish I was. I just can't get to one this week. But the 2 that I have been to have been phenomenal, and I hope that the rest of the fixtures are this week. We'll quickly run through sort of who's playing. We won't really go into the detail of much at all. Rochdale Mayfield versus Doncaster, 2 p.m. on Saturday. Live on the Sportsman at 2 for a 2:30 kickoff. Lock Lane look to overcome Rochdale after beating Oldham in round 2. Hunslet Club Parkside travel to London to face the Scholars. And then our only all community level side, live on our league from 4 p.m. You've got the Royal Navy versus York Acorn. That's the tie that I'm most looking forward to seeing. Probably Robin's most looking forward to seeing. And Toby's probably most looking forward to seeing, because whoever they face then has to go and face Barrow in... Batley away in round 4. Hunslet have got Siddle at home, 1 p.m. on BBC Sport on a Sunday. And then North Wales Crusaders travel to Swinton at 3 p.m. 6 games. We'll get into that more next week once we know what the 4th round fixtures are going to be. But very, very exciting. You've got 1 All League 1 clash, 1 All Community level clash, and then potentially 5 community level teams playing championship sides in round 4, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, considering that there's only 6 games in the 3rd round, we've talked about our frustrations of this before, but considering that, this is probably the most ideal draw. Guaranteed community side in round 4, and then the rest of the chances for upsets. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm praying Siddle upset someone. As a person who is fond of Southern sport, I kind of hope Scholars get through. They've signed Reece Rance today, which is a massive signing for them. Rochdale Mayfield could potentially overcome Doncaster. Lock Lane, we know for a fact, could overcome Rochdale. Now that they're playing at their own home ground, now the RFL have been to Lock Lane and gone, yes, you can play at home. Like, there's a chance that they put on a shock. And I'm kind of hoping we get 3 or 4 community level sides playing championship sides or potentially Super League sides in round 5 or, well, round 6 when they come in, which will be really, really interesting. Before we move on to our ratings as we come towards the end, Toby, you've got a badge rating this week. I've put it in the chat. We're going to Canada. It's the Vancouver Dragons. Me and Robin dislike it. But after your little emoji in the chat, I feel like you're going to annoy us.
No, listen, I don't love it. But there's a certain thing I like about it. If Scotland and Northern Ireland didn't exist, this would be the badge of Great Britain. The England cross. It's got the Dragon of Wales, and that is the only thing I like about it. And apart from that, is an awful design, but I took amusement in the fact that in an alternate dimension, in one of the Marvel universes, this is the flag of Great Britain. And for that reason, it's getting 6.
It's getting a 6. So you're rating this the same as the Philadelphia Flight. Like, this is awful. It's awful. The colouring is shocking. Why have they got the Red Cross? It might be something to do with Vancouver. Like, the Vancouver Dragons, the name doesn't even flow off the tongue well. Like, it doesn't.
I'm speechless.
Like,
yeah, it's a shocking badge. that dragon is absolutely awful. It doesn't even
It's
fit
not.
in the actual shield.
It's
The
not
tail
even a
comes
good
off.
dragon. It's not a good dragon at all, is
You
it?
can't read the word.
Well,
You can't read white and white with a tiny thin red. It's shocking. This is the word. I can't believe you're giving it 6.
I'm willing to go down to 5.5.
yeah, please do, because I don't think there's any other badge in rugby league.
But it's,
What's a 1 if that's a 5.5?
Probably the West Wales Raiders. Probably the West Wales Raiders badge, knowing Toby. I might give him that next week to see what he actually rates it, in all honesty. Wow, that's a shocker. It's gone to the bottom. It's right at the bottom, below Philadelphia Flight, below Carsicon. York Acon with an 8 in second, and then Dorcal Tigers, which we really loved last week, has given us an 8.5. But we must move on. It's been a long show. It's been a show full of more technical difficulties. Well, 1 week there won't be any technical difficulties, I'm sure. But we move on. Set of 6 time. After quite a strong week from myself and Robin, we both gained a point on the Toadster. Toby, you're still 15.5 points at the top. I'm 2 points behind, and then Robin, you're a further point behind me. And I forgot who predicted who, and I had to go back and watch it all, and just because I just had such a long week. But game number 1 this week, it's the repeat of the grand final. It's Saints versus Catalan. Where are we going with this, lads?
I think after the rap that we just gave Saints, they're the favourites for me. But having said that, you can't write off that Catalan side. But still, I'm going to go with Saints.
Toby, are you back in Saints on this one?
I am, purely because Catalans have got a new halves partnership that might take some gelling time. The Saints know what they're doing already.
Yeah.
Saints.
Yeah, the Saints team, like we said, has not changed much. They're strong. They've got a great coach. They've already beaten Catalan in the final. Catalan didn't have the best of showing against Toulouse in pre-season. They might start slowly. It's going to be Saints for me. Next game up is the first game live on terrestrial TV for Super League. We have Leeds versus Warrington Wolves. I've just realised what I've done. I've left the Championship logo in the middle, so I need to go back and change that. That will be changed in post, I promise. That's to remind me to go and do that. Leeds versus Warrington on Saturday, 12:30.
Yeah, this is an exciting one because, like you say, it's on terrestrial television. We haven't had a chance to speak about that yet. Probably will next week, but that's super exciting. I think I'm going to go with Leeds. I really like this Leeds team this year, playing at home. I'm going to back them.
Yeah, we've given Leeds a good rap today. We think they're stronger than Warrington. We hope they can start well. You said yourself earlier, Toby, that Leeds need to start well in order to be a top 4 team, and I think they will against this Warrington side, which we don't think is particularly strong. I'm going to go for Leeds. Is it going to be a clean sweep for Leeds, or are you going to shake the apple cart up a little bit?
Yeah, I'm going to take Warrington. I saw Leeds start bad at home last season. I don't know. I just don't trust Richard Agar at the start of the season. Any after that last season, I think it put me at the bottom of our prediction league at the start of last season. And I mean Warrington. I just don't think Leeds will get off to a great start. I think that they'll all their wins will come sort of from round 3 onwards, which isn't a long time to settle into the season. But that's why I'll pick Warrington.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. You also need to do something different, otherwise it's going to get a bit boring. Next up, it's probably a game that it's probably not as easy to predict as the previous 2, despite the fact that we're picking one of the games was the repeat of the grand final from last year. Toulouse's first game in Super League at home against the Huddersfield Giants team we've got predicted to finish 9th. 2 reasonably weak squads, but Huddersfield won't want to travel this early, I don't think. And for me, I don't know. I'm going to see what I put for our league on the R League predictions, because I think I just did potluck and guessed. Where's my app? Where's the app? There it is. While I look for that, you have a go and.
Yeah. So I think there's always something special. When a team gets a new coach, they always win their first game in a new coach. When a team plays its first game in a new competition, they tend to win it. So I'm going to take Toulouse on this one.
before I reveal who I voted for, Robin, who are you going for here?
Yeah. So again, I actually I'm struggling with this one as well. I keep flitting between the two. I think Toulouse they've got to get wins under the belt, and this is a lower half of the table team, so this is a goal for them is to win that. They're at home, so that adds in their favour as well. But saying that, Huddersfield, if there's ever a match that you want to do the away trip for, surely it's the first one because you've got the most time to prepare for it.
Yeah.
And they'll be fully aware and ready and waiting for a Toulouse ambush. They'll know what's in store, so they're not going to be caught off guard. So, yeah, I'm going to go Huddersfield. That's my pick.
Yeah, it looks like we're going for the same teams again this week, Robin. So we might have to mix it up a bit on the next one. I think I know who you're going to go through Game 4, but I picked Giants on the R-League predictor, and I'm going to have to back them for it because that's why I've done that. At least it's going to be a very close game. Toulouse at home, lots of preparation, but their squad's arguably weaker than what it was last season, which is a shock for a team that have been promoted. It shouldn't be weaker; it should be stronger. The Giants have prepped for an away fixture they've known months about. It's not. I believe it's going to be on TV as well, so that's going to be late on Saturday night on Sky, 7 p.m. UK time, and that's why I'm going to go for the Giants because they have the experience, they know how to start a season, and it's against the newly promoted side. Toby, next up, I'm going to let you go first because I think mine and Robin's predictions for Game 4 are going to be obvious. It's the Royal Navy versus York Acorn in our all community level Challenge Cup tie.
Yeah, very exciting tie. Both of them have had impressive wins to get to this point. I think that the Royal Navy have had a fantastic run, but I think it's going to come to an end. I think York, they've beat a New Zealand B team in the West Warriors. They've won in Scotland. It's time for them to win down south. I think York Acorn Batley will be a fun game as well if that was to come. So I'm going to take York Acorn.
Robin shocked me and picked the Navy.
So, yeah, I mean, I've loved the Navy's run, and they were part of that historic clash with the Army. So I feel like I've enjoyed them in the Challenge Cup this year. But unfortunately, I've got to go with Acorn. Like Toby said, they've beat the West Warriors. They've beat the Eagles. I reckon they're on form for another win. So I'm going with my home club.
Yeah, there's one thing that's sort of it's tempting me to pick the Royal Navy, and it's the fact that York have had to travel to Edinburgh a month ago and they've won. Yes, they've then have to travel back, they've played a game, and now they're having to travel down to Portsmouth. Another really, really long trip for them. For this level of team, and I know they're an NCL team, so fair play to them, but this is a lot of travelling to do for amateur players who have been at work during the week. They might not have got to training, and it's not going to be the same team. And it's not a young team that York have, I believe. I'm looking at some of the players, they struggled to put out a young, fresh team. It was a totally different team they put out against West Warriors than what they did against Edinburgh Eagles. And because of that, I think that the Royal Navy might just be that little bit stronger. However, the Navy didn't impress against the Army, really. Like, they should have blown them away. They blew Bridgend away expectedly. They came back and they put their heads on the line. They put their hearts on the line against the Army, and they deserved their win. But they would have celebrated that massively. And they're going to go into this, in my opinion, a little bit complacent. They shouldn't, because of the type of people they are. But I think they could, because of the run that they've had at York. There's no pressure on York. And for that reason, I'm actually going to go for York. Like, clean sweep, York are going to go down to Portsmouth and they're going to beat the Navy. Just in my opinion.
Love to see it.
And the next one might shock you as well, lads. But Widnes are beating Halifax this weekend.
Oh, so you've gone with your head for that one, definitely.
I think so. I think London, the win against London for Fax, it was expected, should have beaten them. A loss against a Batley team that after being 16-0 up, shouldn't have happened. They're at home, against a Widnes team that have looked really, really good in the opening 2 weeks. I think a Widnes team that we didn't think would look this good. And because of that, I think Widnes are going to do them over. And I'm sorry, Fax fans, for saying this, but they are. I don't see Fax getting 2 points from this weekend.
Yeah, it's an interesting fixture. I think, like you say, we didn't expect Widnes to be doing this well, and we expected Fax to be doing better. I think potentially Fax may have found the weaknesses and patched them up in time. I mean, they're going to have a job on to stop hat-trick scorer Lawson from Widnes, but I'm going to go with Halifax, and not just for the fact that it would be really, really satisfying if Fax won. And I picked them and you didn't.
It'd be horrible for me. Don't get me wrong. I'll be praying on the weekend that listening along, and I pray that they win. I pray that Fax win because I want them to win. But as the way the season's gone so far, I don't know if we're going to get the point. We start slowly every year. Only one win in 5 last year. We've already lost a game this year. I don't see it happening. Toby, we've split the field here. Who are you backing? Who's going to get the majority?
I thought picking Widnes was guaranteed to go against the trend. And now that you've picked Widnes, I feel like I should actually go with my head and not just that. And yeah, I think I said at the start of the season, I believe Halifax are a very strong side. I think they've now had their confidence booster against London, and that game against Bentley was sort of a very hard indicator where you're starting with a weakened team, all playing together for the first time, and you're playing at Bentley on a slope. I think at home, bit of momentum going, proof that they need to prove that they're a good side like we think they are, and I'm going to pick Halifax too.
Fair play, fair enough. You two. Last year, you got on the hype train, and I'm getting off it this year. I'm like, there is no hype train yet. I'm just sort of following it. I'm watching it. I'm like, I might catch the next one. Like, I still want to get there. I still want to get to Super League, but I'm not on that train. I'm not on the early train. I'm not rushing. The last game, like I've got an anytime return to Super League, and that's what I'm just when I'm ready. When I've packed my bag, and when we're there, I'll go. I'm not going yet. I'm not ready. I don't want to get up that early, and that's the way I'm seeing it this year. Like, we could get there at the end of the season, and I'll happily ride that train towards the end of the year. But it's a bit early for me to jump on it. Just yet. Not after the first 2 weeks have been like, we started slow against London, but it was only the second half when they tired we came on. The second half against Bentley was the opposite. We started fast and we ended slow. Like, we've been so inconsistent. If we have a slow start and a slow end against Widnes, we're going to get battered because they've really impressed the first 2 weeks. But last game of the weekend, Lee at home against Bradford. Bradford come off a shocking defeat against Sheffield at home. Lee come off a bit of a battering against B.I.F.F, which we kind of expected. We thought it was going to be a good fixture, kind of expected. Again, I believe it's the Monday night game. I've got Lee winning this one, but only because they're at home and they didn't look awful against B.I.F.F despite the scoreline.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one to call. Obviously, Toby is on the Lee hype train, but for me, Bradford didn't look great. I think we saw the pitch was a mud bath in both games, so I think they'll still both be a little bit rusty. But I think Lee have the better squad, so I'm going to go with Lee.
Toby, are you back in Lee and sort of mixing it up a bit, or are you going to and sort of staying on the hype train that you've had all year? Oh, Lee might finish first. Actually, no, we're not going to finish first. And you're slowly sort of backing down a little bit. You were full steam ahead, episode 2, 3, and now you're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, if Bradford didn't have the cock up that they had against Sheffield, then I think I'd be tempted to pick Bradford in this because Lee broke my heart. But I will say about that Lee performance against Thurston, which had fantastic viewing figures, was just as a little well done to Premier
huge.
Sports.
Yeah.
I think that Lee did play relatively well. They just weren't willing to play expansive and play through the backs on that muddy pitch, and Fev were willing to just pretend the pitch wasn't boggy and wasn't that, and it worked out for them. They played with more confidence, and it paid off. So I think that I think Lee are still a good side, and I don't think Bradford have got the confidence to go and beat them on Monday. So I will take Lee.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I think Bradford. We said this, didn't we? With John Keir in charge, they're going to struggle with consistency because, the year that 2019 they beat Leeds and then lost to Halifax in the Cup, and they didn't finish in the playoffs. And then last year they struggled. Like this year they're going to struggle, but their squad's a bit stronger. They still haven't got a deck pattern available, and they need to make the most of not having him in the first few rounds. I believe he's coming back round 5 or 6, so they need to make sure they get wins under their belt. But I don't think one of those wins is going to be this weekend. So Jordan Lilly, even not deck pattern. Apologies. Yeah, but that's been a bumper episode. We wanted to do 2 episodes, but unfortunately, time frames and technical issues and everything else that just sort of comes with none of us being near each other has got in the way of that. We really hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't shout at us if you don't like where your team's finished. It's not. We'll probably change.
Do it. Just go on, shout.
Actually, yeah. You know what? Do it because you know what? We don't care. Like none of us support a Super League side. I mean, Robin's probably got a little bit of love for. Is it Huddersfield? Was it for Huddersfield? Was that you that went to Huddersfield? Or was that someone else? I'm thinking of someone else. That was not me. That was someone else.
You don't have my love.
He's like stuff this cowbell. But yeah, like none of us have a support for a Super League side. We're not going to actively say that we're Super League fans. Yes, we love the quality of rugby, but yeah, we're not Super League fans, and we don't watch these teams week in, week out unless they're on TV. So if you don't like it, feel free to shout, but we won't care. Like, unless you insult us, we won't care.
No, change my mind. I want to hear you change my mind. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I will shout, and we won't listen. But if you change my mind, then
we will come back to it at the end of the year. And like, say if we get a team perfect, we get 3 points. The more spots they're off, the more points we lose. So if we get them exact, it's 3 points. If it's 1 place off, we get 2 points. 2 plays off, we get 1 point. If it's no place off, we get 0 points. That's how we're going to do it.
Rules tonight.
I'm having fun. I'll probably forget about that in 3 weeks, but someone better remind me. We've been the Biff. That's been Toby. That's been Robin. That way, not that way. That way. That's been Robin. That's been Toby. It's just the complete opposite way on Discord, so the lads are confused. Don't forget, drop a like, drop a subscription on YouTube, drop a follow on Spotify. Make sure if you're watching it on YouTube, mute it and listen to it on Spotify. Double up. We know what you're doing. All right. But we thank you for the support so far. We'll be back next week with another story of the round. It's, I believe, my turn for Hall of Fame, or is it Robin's turn?
Yeah.
It's my turn for Hall of Fame. So these two will not have a clue what's going on. We'll have another badge rating from Toby. And yeah, we'll have fun. We'll have a laugh. We'll have fun. And we'll see the fact that Toby is now level on points with someone else in the predictions. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the Super League. Enjoy the Challenge Cup. Enjoy the Championship. If you get to a game, let us know what game you're going to at the weekend, because none of us are going to one, which is heartbreaking. But we've been the Biff, brought to you by Shoulder Charges and Swinging Arms, which I think is fantastic. We'll see you next week. Peace.